chapter 28 was written long before the modern concept of air pressure, but it's totally true in stating that wind has weight. And that's the truth that we're after this morning. The Bible indeed is trustworthy and true. I'd like us to take a look right now at our first test. We're still working on our main experiment with reality. It's cooking up. But I want to take you over here for a moment. And we want to see and test to see if the Bible is true. I have a regular Coca-Cola glass here. I have about 2 quarts of water. We'll fill this up so far. Now what if I told you if the Bible is true and the wind has weight, or the atmosphere actually has pressure, we'll be able to turn this water in this glass upside down and it not spill out. Here's what we're going to do. And what happens is that the weight of the air pressure in the room is greater than the weight of the water in the glass. So actually, this room has hundreds of pounds of pressure, of air pressure in it that we don't even know about. This room weighs hundreds of pounds more due to the air that is resting in it, right? And air has weight, and so the weight of air is pressing in not only from underneath this glass, but from all around it. And the air all around this glass outweighs the water that's in it, and so it naturally, the weight of the air naturally holds the weight of the water in the glass. All right, so that's our first test that we just did that proves that air actually has weight. This is getting ready. We're about to go to our main test in reality. But before we take our main test in reality right here, and we're going to explain that in a minute, I'd like to talk to you about one more thing. The Bible is always true. It always has been true. It always will be true. And what we want to look at before we perform our main experiment with reality, I want to touch on another truth touchstone, truth versus tradition that I mentioned a little vaguely earlier, but I'd like to share with you something that I think you're hardly going to be able to believe. It's a truth versus tradition responsible for the death of the first president of the United States. Is that hard to believe or what? All right, let's take a look at this thing. Did you know after the Revolutionary War that there's a lot of controversy surrounding the death of our first president, General George Washington, right? But it really is true. I want you to listen to this truth versus tradition. Today, some of us realize that our first president didn't die of a natural death. He was killed by his doctors, by his physicians. And this is coming to us from the history of medicine in America, right? And this is a caption out of the Virginia Medical Monthly from 1799. And this would be have taken place December 12th, 1799, right? And it reads, the family physician, Dr. Crate, was sent for in the morning. The doctor arrived and fixed up a mixture of molasses, vinegar, and butter, but the general could hardly swallow a drop. He gagged up and nearly choked to death right there on the concoction. Whenever he attempted, he appeared to be distressed, convulsed, and he almost suffocated. A man named Rawlings appeared on the scene. He came to help out. He bled the president. Martha pleaded with him not to take too much. Washington himself was not a fan of orthodox medicine. But when the bleeding was stopped, he asked that more be taken. Some are led to only conclude that this was a very sick man willing to do anything to try to feel better. They then bathed the outside of his throat and bathed his feet with warm water. Dr. Crate blistered the outside of Washington's throat, and he took more blood. A mixture of vinegar and sage tea was made up for Washington, and he was instructed to gargle with it. And again, the president nearly suffocated. But it did bring up some phlegm. Washington tried to cough, but he could not. A Dr. Dick and a Dr. Brown arrived just minutes apart from each other in the early afternoon. All three of them bled Washington one more time. It was reported that the blood came very slowly and that it was thick. They administered mercury to him, but the president could hardly swallow. At one point, Washington finally gave up, and he pleaded with his doctors to just let him die on his own. He was drooling from the mercury and weak from all the blood loss. After he passed out, his doctors, against his wishes, listen to this, against his wishes, they went to work on him again, blistering his legs and feet and bleeding him. Finally, somewhere between 10 and 11 in the evening, his breathing came easier as he lay there quietly. He had already given instructions for his burial, offered his last words, "'Tis well." Dr. Craik took the patient's hand to feel for a pulse, but the president had went limp and dropped his hand from his. Martha asked if he was gone, but no one could speak. Lear raised his hand as a signal that the president had passed on. "'Tis well," she said too, adding softly that she would soon follow him. The question arises, would he have died if he had been left alone? We'll never know, but we do know his care surely helped him along in his death. This kind of treatment is not good for healthy people, let alone someone with a terrible sore throat. And here's the picture they have here. The death of our first president. Okay, so here they're collaborating about their story. Okay, so the story is he died of a sore throat, right? It's said that they removed, it's said that they bled out the president around at least 4 times according to this story. But you know what? It's also sad, sadly, that right beside the bed of the president was a Bible. And if they would only have gone to the truth instead of tradition, the president probably would have not died that day. The Bible tells us, the truth says in Leviticus chapter 17, 11 and 14, the life of all creatures is in the blood. Let me ask you a question this morning. If you were the president, would you have wanted the truth on your side, or medical thought, or medical tradition? What would you have wanted on your side? I don't know about you, but I would have wanted the truth that day on my side. All right, let's take a look at our main experiment, and let's get ready to test it and see what's going to happen here. All right, now we're ready for our main experiment today. This is our experiment with reality. We're testing the truth. We want to find out if air really does have weight. According to Job 28:25, the Bible says that God measured out and gave air weight. And so what we're looking at is we have a hot water in these cans. We're going to invert them into this bath of water. And if the Bible is true, which we know air has weight, these cans should immediately crush upon impact because they're not an open system and they have no way to breathe. Please don't ever try this at home without a responsible, mature adult. But all right, for our purposes and our main experiment with reality, are you ready? Here we go. Wow! Did you get that? That one crushed. Alright, let's try another one. Like I said, please don't try this at home without a mature, responsible adult, someone like your grandfather probably. Alright, because these cans are hot and we'd hate to see anybody get hurt. But here's the result, and here's the proof of the great reality and the 3,000-year-old principle taught by the Bible that the wind does have weight. Actually, it's about 3,500 years ago. Here we go. Here we go. Ready for test 2. Does air have weight? Bam! All right. All right. We've got one more can to go. All of these are cans that we previously crushed. You can go and see behind the scenes and see us work on different experiments, but these are cans that were previously crushed earlier. That one's pretty actually. Did you get a shot of that one? That one's pretty flattened. All right, that's it behind the scenes. But here we are in the actual experiment, and here goes our last can. And these are really hot. Here we go. There we are. Living proof that what the Bible says 3,500 years ago is still trustworthy and completely reliable, that the wind does indeed have weight.